I'm the same way, man. If I hear a
Really?
song and a melody or a chord progression or some weird time signature just gets me in the right place,
Yeah,
man,
yeah,
I'll be cutting a little tear rolling
yeah, yeah,
down the
yeah,
cheek.
yeah. Okay, all right, everybody, welcome to this Prog chat. We have Scot Lade from the Prog Corner. He is in Ohio right now. Hey, Scott, this is our first time meeting via Zoom. Really privileged to be talking to you. I love your channel.
Oh
Welcome.
no, the honor is mine. I feel I definitely feel that you were one of the very first YouTubers that I started watching, and definitely made me want to jump on board and start doing my thing. So
Awesome.
I have to thank you, Dean.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'm grateful to hear that because I think your channel is great. I think you're a really great presence on the web, and your passion for prog is pretty obvious. And
Yeah,
from
you know, the whole thing just started. I was just going to do my top albums of 2021. I've been doing it online for the Fire Note for the past 7 or 8 years. So I just figured, I was watching you, I was watching a few other people, Notes Reviews, Nathan on Shuffle, and some of the bigger channels like Sea of Tranquility and whatnot. So I just figured, why not, just put it on YouTube, see what happens. And it did pretty good. I was shocked. It was never supposed to really turn into an actual YouTube channel, but the people spoke. They wanted it. Hey, they wanted it. They got it.
right on.
So be careful
Good,
what
good.
you wish for. It's a miracle that I can actually post videos. As you know, my editing skills are absolutely Spartan at best. So, I do what I do, which is run my mouth. And fortunately, people are really into prog, and there was definitely a need for it on YouTube. Anytime a mainstream YouTuber talks about prog, he gets more views than when he's talking about other types of music. So it was obvious that this thing was going to do pretty well. And it's actually, since I just did the best of 2022, it actually means it's the 1 year anniversary of the Prog Corner, Dean. Can you believe it?
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, we did. We had a good first year. I have absolutely no complaints. It beat all the projections that I had. I wasn't really expecting a whole lot, but it's done way better than I thought it would. And I was taken a little bit aback by that. So, now I kind of got to rethink the whole thing. It's like, I got to kind of invest some time and some money and do some stuff. Like, I bought a microphone and I bought lights and, the stuff that you got to do. I guess a camera is probably next.
I mean, but those things are really, they're important, but they're not important either. Like I find that I've been doing this YouTube channel, maybe, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years. And it took a long time for me to reach 1,000, but I wasn't like you. You seem pretty focused on prog. I kind of just started with I started a guitar lesson. I did some gear reviews, didn't really have a focus, but you're right.
And that I think was really the secret sauce. And to that end, my editor at the Fire Note actually came up with it. He was talking about trying to have a little bit more of a prog presence on the website. So I'm like, hey, I'll spearhead the Prog Corner. He came up with the name, and it's an awesome name. Nobody was using it, so I was actually shocked that there was no little corner of YouTube or the internet where somebody was using that name. So I'm like, yeah, it was perfect. And as far as YouTube goes and playing the numbers game, it does kind of box me in. I can't really niche out, as they say, but that's all right. I don't really want to all that much. About 95% of the music I listen to is prog rock. So really 95% of the content should probably be there as well. And it's what I enjoy doing. So, it's like, for example, Dean, tonight, you're all the way over there in Vancouver or whatever, British Columbia. Dude, it's way past my bedtime. I'm telling you that right now. This old guy goes to bed at 9 o'clock at night. But I will stay up. I will break curfew, to talk prog rock with the great Dean Wolfe. So thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. Tell me then about how you got into prog, because all of us, it's a bit of a story. I mean,
Sure.
nobody is born a prog fan. I don't know, maybe
No.
they are. So
Yeah,
what
I
was
don't know if ever there was a person that was predestined to or predetermined to become a prog fan, it was probably me. My dad was a jazz musician, so there was a whole bunch of Miles Davis and Dave Brubeck and John Coltrane in the house. But my dad was also kind of a hippie guy, so there was a lot of Frank Zappa and the Beatles and the Who and the Stones and the Kinks. So I grew up in a very musical household, but honestly, it wasn't until my older brother, and this is usually the story. My older brother went away to college. He came back on Christmas break, and he had a cassette tape, and it had Fragile on one side, it had Emerson, Lake and Palmer Tarkus on the other side.
Nice combo.
And Dean, it was a wrap. Honestly, that was it. It was done. It was over. Fragile destroyed my life. It did. I never heard music the same way ever again. Because at that point I was playing classical guitar. My dad being a musician, when I was 5 years old, he gave me a choice. You're playing guitar or you're playing piano. And even at 5, I knew guitar players got the chicks. So yeah, guitar it was. So I heard the first opening notes of Roundabout and that, classical guitar thing, Steve Howe does. And I'm like, I obviously found my band, and they've been my favorite band ever since. And,
awesome.
Went through some rough years in the 80s, like every prog rock fan. And, I got into a lot of punk and post-punk and a bunch of other stuff. But, like a true prog head, I came back home. I came back where I was supposed to be. And honestly, it was Transatlantic that did it for me. Because I've been listening to a lot of, the second wave of prog in the 80s, the Marillions and the 12th Nights and the Pendragons and the Palaces. They were all right. I liked them. I didn't have the same connection to them. And then the third wave started. It was a lot of the metaler, metal-y kind of stuff going on, influenced by the Fates Warnings and the Queensryches, talking about Dream Theaters and stuff. And then I started hearing the Echolins and the Flower Kings and the Spockspirits. None of it was doing it for me, man. And then I heard Transatlantic, and it was like, okay, I'm back 100%. So here we are, like 22 years later, just making up for a little bit of lost time in the middle. But I think a lot of prog heads got lost in the wilderness of the 80s there a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Because I had a band actually, and we were trying to get a record contract because we were a full-time top 40 band. We traveled around Canada, playing 6 nights a week, and then on a Sunday we'd drive 20 hours to the next godforsaken middle of nowhere town and play. That was fun. But we were trying to get
I was so out of the prog scene that this was my band, and we were as far away from prog rock as imaginable. It's just basically punk rock is all we were. But I just Love Beach, Yes Tormato, Abacab. It took it all out of me. There were bands like XTC and the Stranglers, and there was so much interesting music going on, and unfortunately very little of it was prog rock. So we did what we had to do. So how'd your band end up doing? Did you ever get signed?
Well, we tried to get signed, and we got turned down by a few companies, and they always said, you're too progressive. And this was in the 1988, 89. And of course, that was when, we were going against the stream. Everyone was not into prog at the time. Yeah, we were kind of hoping there'd be a revival. We thought, well, we won't be part of the revival. And that was just before CDs came and bands could make their own CDs, so we didn't have that option. We could have, if we stuck it out for a few more years, but that's okay. I did other things for a few decades, Hey,
that band that I just showed you, they got signed after I left the band, so, we all have our little stories to tell, but it all leads us to exactly where we're supposed to be. And here we are.
It feels like a renaissance kind of, because I'm so impressed by not only the amount of new prog rock, but the quality, the level.
Yeah.
I mean, the musicianship, the full side epics, and being adventurous too. There's so much out there. It's very impressive.
Well, I would argue that just from a pure musicianship standpoint, it's probably better than it was in the golden era.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the depth and the quality of it, I just finished my top 25 for 2022. And what I started realizing as I was going through over 200 prog albums that I had under consideration, that maybe the top, 10 albums were better in 1972, 1973. But you go past that, and I'm sorry, from number 11 to 25, 2022 is as good as any year ever. Such a hard time whittling it down to 25. There were at least another 40 or 50 albums that should have been on there, could have been on there, and if they were dropped in 1972, would have been on there. And that's how good prog rock is right now. Yeah, maybe nobody's putting out a Close to the Edge or Selling England by the Pound or Dark Side of the Moon. But as Bill Bruford said, there was a lot of slack in the rope back in the early 70s. There was a lot of stuff no band had ever tried before. Technology was brand new, so there was a lot of things no band ever could do before, right? So, a lot of the stuff has already been done. So I contend that it's actually harder today to be interesting, to come up with something nuanced and interesting and exciting than it was back then.
Yeah, that's right.
You could just play a Moog and you'd be like, oh my God, I've never heard that before. That sounds so great. Doesn't matter if you were playing anything good or interesting. The technology alone made it interesting. You don't have that advantage today. It's all kind of been done before. So you really got to figure out a way to do something, really, really cool and unique. And my hats go off to all the bands that are out there today, because it is just incredible, the quality. You're so right, Dean. My top 6, any one of them could have been the album of the year this year. It was ridiculous.
I'd love to see if you could do a top 25 list for every year from 1970 to 2023.
I'm starting in reverse order. I started with 2021, and then I went back. I think I'm at 2013 now.
Oh, so cool.
That's a really good idea, because honestly, after a year, I've published 160 videos so far. A lot of the low-hanging fruit's already gone.
Right.
Rank this and the best albums of this. And a lot of the real easy, obvious targets are already hit. So
yeah.
I think that might be where I want to go next year, is really delve into it. And maybe not necessarily do it in chronological order. Maybe I can skip around a little bit, because I don't know about you. I'm not really all that interested in what the top prog albums of 1989 were.
It would be interesting to watch that series and see how prog has evolved through all those years. And so prog was new in the 70s. It had its big explosion, sort of like the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang.
It was the Big Bang.
It was like, that whole cluster of bands, ELP and Yes and Camel and just, so it's all been spreading out now. And like you said, it's harder to come up with something that hasn't been done.
I was thinking about that explosion that happened. And, prog was going on in other places besides the UK, obviously the United States. I mean, you can argue that Zappa was a pretty foundational figure and everything going on. But, Italy also had a whole bunch going on. Germany, France did as well. But let's be honest. It's really something that's unique to England in particular. The late 60s, there was something about the socioeconomic conditions going on there, combined with the fact that all these young musicians from England saw these dudes from Liverpool change the world like no other band had ever done before and never ever will again. It had to do something to you, man. If you had a little band in Birmingham and you saw them lads from Liverpool blow up like that, it's got to give you a little bit of a boost of confidence, saying, what, there's a chance I could do that too.
Yeah.
And, for the first time, it was actually not necessarily just considered like a poor man's version of music. You could actually, take rock music seriously as an art form. And the Beatles obviously were the ones that made that happen. So there was just something in the water, something in the air, something in the atmosphere in the UK in the late 60s that caused that big bang, that explosion. And it's just ridiculous. It's like every single band I love and care about came from that cradle of greatness. It's just, it's crazy.
And I think you could also cite Steven Wilson as a very key figure for kind of causing this new renaissance of, or I don't know what you would call it, this rebirth of prog, like the way he was remixing all the old albums, and it was this huge interest. I mean, Porcupine Tree, my wife, I had Porcupine Tree. I made a cassette and I put it in the car, and she said, "Oh, who's that?" And I'm like really excited. "Oh, that's Steven Wilson." And my kids also, they're like, "Hey, Dad, that's awesome." My kids love Steven Wilson.
Wow. And
I'm excited.
Pitchfork used to review Porcupine Tree albums. It just shows that they were always maybe a little different than the capital P prog bands. But you're so right. I mean, Steven Wilson is probably the most important single figure in modern prog, just in terms of keeping its visibility up there and keeping it somewhat commercially viable, in that his last couple of records have actually been pretty big hits in the UK and have scored really well. So, I'm hoping that next year he's got a new album coming out that's supposed to be a little bit more experimental than, The Future Bites or To the Bone were. But he is absolutely, he's the guy, because if you think about who we've got in the US, I guess Neil Morris would probably be the guy. The guy holding the banner of prog for the US. He's nowhere near where Steven Wilson is from a commercial standpoint. So
right. I guess Dream Theater has done pretty well commercially, haven't they?
For themselves. Not too shabby.
Yeah.
Although no doubt they're a big name. Hey, they even won a Grammy, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they got a Grammy.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a big plus for all prog. It helps.
It's been a while.
It helps us all. I think
it's been a while since a prog band won a Grammy. I mean, Genesis won a Grammy, Grammy, but it was for the Land of Confusion video.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't for the music.
Right.
Yeah, Yes won a Grammy. It was for the instrumental on 90125.
Right. Yeah, so, interesting.
But there's been other examples. I think Rush won a Grammy once. There's been a few. Pink Floyd won a couple Grammys, I think.
Right, Pink Floyd. Yeah. Well, there's so many of these big bands. Like they're so like if you looked up and thought of it as a constellation, you've got your big bright stars, like your Yes, like your Rush, like your whatever, and then the lesser ones. And they're not necessarily because the lesser ones are any better or worse. Like I love Renaissance, and I've just been getting into them the last couple of years. Whereas
they're incredible.
When I was into Yes, someone would say, "Oh, you should check out Renaissance." And I don't know, I just kept on sticking with Yes and not really exploring enough. But there's so much amazing other bands out there that didn't hit well, I guess Renaissance was fairly successful. That they did all right.
They were, particularly in the US market. They had a manager that was very, very attuned to commercial sales, and the American market was what everybody wanted to try to crack. So apparently about 75% of their touring all through the 70s was in the US. So they did have a little bit of success in New York and Philadelphia in particular. I guess they had a pretty big cult following there. Just incredible, man. What an amazing band they are.
What an amazing singer Annie Haslam is. Such a voice. Wow.
I didn't give them a chance until a little bit later on. I think the female vocals thing, when I'm a teenager in the 70s, the female vocals was like, that's what my sister listens to, right? She listens to Heart, and that kind of stuff. But then one day she came home with an album by this band called Renaissance. and it was 1976 novella. And yeah, I don't think that record stayed in her room much longer. I think I stole that and put it in my room. Just incredible. Yeah, Annie Haslam's great. I love her.
Why don't we talk just a little bit about vinyl? Because I sold all my vinyl back in the 90s. I sold it all.
Yeah.
And then I started getting back into it a couple of years ago, a year and a half, and I've got about 60, 50 albums or so. And it's great to get back into.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I'm on my third vinyl collection now. When I was 14, my dad retired and bought a sailboat. So yeah, no vinyl records on the sailboat. So I had to put everything on cassette tapes. So then when I got back on dry land, I started, collecting vinyl again, working in record stores. And then I ended up getting in a little bit of trouble. I got locked up and I lost everything. And so here we are now. This is a vinyl collection number 3. I'm into about 10 years worth of it now. Yeah. And I think I'm right around like 1,200 pieces, I think. Just spending way too much money, sir. Way too much money.
Although now it's a little bit more in the area of an investment. It's not such.
Sure, no doubt. I mean, I trust me, I hardly ever even play vinyl. If I want to listen to music, I usually just go onto, Bandcamp or something. But, I'm the guy that rocks a Crosley, okay? Because if I'm going to be investing in a, expensive system, that's less vinyl I can buy. And I have a very serious vinyl addiction. It's bad. It's bad, Dean. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I got some addiction issues.
Well, I managed to put a cap on it because I have some albums I bought and it's been months I hadn't even listened to it yet. Not because I didn't want to, but because when I want to listen to an album, I want to have everything set up. I sit down, I read it. I don't want to put it on and like do homework like the kids do. I want to focus. So immerse yourself. So I think that's one of the things that got me into prog, the idea of immersing. One of the first prog bands I got into was Tangerine Dream and Mike Oldfield Tubular Bells. And my brother and I, we would turn off the lights, put on the record, lie on our backs and just listen to it. And that was what it was all about.
That's where the artwork kind of comes into. And where especially vinyl artwork, where it's 12 by 12, you got the gatefold kick, and you don't get that out of a little CD jewel case. So you've got the whole visual thing that's helping you with the auditory thing you're experiencing in the headphones as a little kid, putting the headphones on, looking at a Roger Dean album cover, hearing this crazy music, you get transported to another time and place and another reality, in fact. And that's exactly what I was looking for as a kid, that kind of escapism, I guess. But to me, I always, being a musician, I guess I was always looking for music or bands that challenged, my sense of what music could be, because I'd already figured out 1, 4, 5, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, I figured all that stuff out by the time I was 6. So my brain needed more. I wanted more. The pentatonic scale wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for somebody that could, get the neurons in the brain going a little bit. And prog rock is exactly what I needed. But at the same time, the jazz that my dad was listening to, that was his music. Classical music, I love it. I'm a classical guitarist. But that was hundreds of years ago, man. I needed my music, and that was rock music. So prog rock just obviously was going to be where I ended up. And
so who are your favorite guitarists? Because of course I think of Steve Hackett or Steve Howe because of the classical guitar. Mood for a Day and what was that one on Foxtrot?
Horizons.
I didn't even know that song existed, and somebody said I should give a guitar lesson for it. I figured it out, and I have a guitar lesson for it now. Actually, I teach it online. That's a great
left-handed version.
I do both now.
Do you?
You just have to flip it. I just do another video flipped. And
do you?
Then the lefties and righties both can use the video.
That's cool. I did not find Horizons or Mood for a Day to be particularly challenging, but I'll tell you what, the clap
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I never got that. I never figured that one out. I never got that right. I mean, I could do it at half speed, but
Right, right.
yeah, no, my favorite guitarists, you mentioned the two great Steves, Hackett and Howe. You gotta throw Frank Zappa in there. If you're looking at the grand scheme of things, I'm a huge Terry Kath guy. I loved him. That early Chicago stuff, his style was just amazing. David Gilmour. And as far as like guys that are just criminally underrated, I'm gonna always go to bat for Martin Barre from Jethro Tull. Just nobody talks about him when they talk about the greats, and that should be corrected. So whenever asked, I always try to throw Martin Barreism in there because that dude is just phenomenal.
Well, it's all pretty subjective sometimes. I mean, everyone has their personal,
It is, yeah. Going through all your great videos over the years. Probably my favorite was you were doing Kansas Song for America and you were outside.
Oh yes, yeah. I was on vacation at the time
with the nature, and then there's like a hummingbird that you zoomed.
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna do?
That was awesome.
I'm gonna do that again. I was thinking do a mountaintop react. So there's a place I can go up on a sort of a little, not a real mountain, but it's pretty high up, and just pick some songs and do some reactions way out there up in the hill and nature and see how that goes.
I love it. Yeah. Also, what caught my attention about that was you, like so many others, had no idea just how incredibly progressive Kansas could be.
Yep.
And still no idea. Their last two albums have been incredible. They're a prog band through and through that happen to have a couple of hits.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what threw me, I guess. I just always heard the same Kansas songs. And I knew they were kind of, they sort of had a classic rock kind of sort of proggy feel. But like Boston, they sound a little proggy sometimes, and that doesn't make them prog, right? So it's easy to lump, Kansas in there with Journey and Foreigner and Boston and bands like that. But oh man, I gotta tell you, some of all the albums I've listened to in my lifetime, which I 50,000 maybe, that I've listened to from start to finish and meant something to me. That first Kansas album I've listened to more than any other album. Really?
Don't know why, but for some reason that album has always stuck with me. It's not my favorite album. It's probably not even my favorite Kansas album. Leftovertures is probably that one. But I don't know why. I have to listen to it at least once a week, or else I don't feel right. It just speaks to my soul. And it's funny because prog rock is like that. I think the records that mean something to you, it's probably not because that makes me think of my ex-girlfriend. It's connecting to some other part of your brain, right? That's why I always like to ask, what is your all-time favorite prog album? Because I think it tells a lot about a person.
Oh, you're asking me now, or
nah? You can answer if you want to.
I don't have a ready answer.
I was setting it up to always pimp Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Oh, I love
wherever I go, every chance I get, I'm gonna die on the hill of Tales. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a top 10 for sure. I have to do that. I haven't done a lot of countdowns like you have, which is another thing I wanted to mention. I didn't set out to do reaction videos. That just kind of happened.
Really?
Just ended up, my wife suggested it. And I thought, I don't want to do that. And then I thought, I could react to prog, some new prog. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, so, people love it. I mean, look at your kid. What'd you do? OK Computer the other day.
Yeah, and I just did Kid A, and I'm editing that tonight. So Kid A is coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a Radiohead geek.
Yeah. So I was curious, are you ever going to do like reaction video style videos? No. Okay.
No, I will not. I shouldn't say no, because I've always figured, maybe people would like to see it, because I love watching reaction videos. But I know what'll happen is I'll start crying, and it'll just get ugly, because when I hear Chris Squire's widow was quoted as saying she always knew when Chris loved the song because he'd always start crying. The tears would roll down his face. I'm the same way, man. If I hear a song and a melody or a chord progression or some weird time signature just gets me in the right place, man, I'll be cutting a little tear rolling down the cheek. And that might just be a little too embarrassing for this fragile male ego.
Right. Okay.
But no,
fair enough.
Yeah, it's something I really should think about, because the numbers do great for everybody that do the reaction stuff. I think maybe I'm just intimidated by doing anything different.
Yeah. The nice thing about the reaction videos is how the interactions with people, like down in the comment sections, like, you can't underestimate that. I mean, you get to talk with someone anywhere in the world about some comment they make. You know,
no, you're right about that. I mean, more than view counts and watch time and all that kind of stuff. To me, I love it when a video breaks with a bunch of comments that people are actually talking about it and they're interacting. And, you know, I guess the whole thing is you're trying to build a community of people that enjoy what you enjoy, and they like listening to what you're talking about, and they want to chime in the comments. And that's, you know, because ain't none of us getting rich doing this. No,
that's for sure. I mean, one of my dreams is why I changed the name to Prog Dog from my name.
Oh, I love that, by the way.
Oh, thanks. That was my brother who suggested it. I mentioned Prog Dog. I used to have a dog here, and called him the Prog Dog. And my brother said, you should capitalize that. It's catchy, you know. I'm hoping someday I can host like a Prog Dog conference where there's progressive rock bands from around the world, new and upcoming bands, all coming there to showcase, and then prog rock fans coming there to this conference, and everybody, you know, they could sell vinyl and just t-shirts, and this is a big happy fest kind of thing. You know, that'd be my kind of dream, to do something like that.
Absolutely. Cool. You know, my dream would be to win the Powerball and become a billionaire, and you know, then I could do anything I want. Just, you know, have a festival every year somewhere in the middle of a field and not charge a penny, and, you know, pay every band, you know, $250K plus expenses. Yeah. You got to dream big, nice. You know, because someday that's going to happen to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and the internet is such a great thing. It unites. And I know it can divide, but it unites prog fans around the world, and anything's possible with the quality of music that's being released these days.
Yeah, I will end on that note, because unity and keeping people together, and that's so important right now. I think prog is doing that, and I think your channel's helping.
Love you, Dean.
All right, take care,
awesome, brother. You keep doing it.
Until next time, okay?
All right, man.
All right.
Peace.
Cheers.